Week 15 fantasy football, a memorable one. Hayden, I think it's only fitting that we get a Thursday night 40-plus point performance from Kyle Pitts to roll into banger after banger after banger of games in the main slate of Sunday's actions that also emphatically hurts teams' playoff chances, elevates others, and even more so, and I'll get to them in my games, some major injuries that impact even the 2026 season. But we have to start with the Buffalo Bills walking into New England and beating the Patriots 35-31. At one point, Hayden, they were down 21-0, but then a 28-7 Buffalo Bill turn back here. One of their many comebacks, amazing ones this year from Josh Allen and company. How did it happen?
Early in the game, it was exactly what we talked about. The Buffalo Bills run defense has been so bad, and that's what we got right away. Drake May has not one, but a second designed quarterback run. He had a zone read where he sprinted out at an absolute full speed, wins to the pylon. They go also to empty, quarterback draw, untouched up the middle. Next up is Travion Henderson's turn. He has a 50-yarder, untouched, and a 65-yarder, untouched. That was most of the scoring because when Drake May was going back to pass, they just did not have enough guys open. So they got really hot early. And in the second half, they only ran a couple of plays. They only ran the ball 4 times in the entire second half. One, because the long Travion Henderson runs, but also because they didn't trust their ground game to win in like short yardage situations. They were putting all of it onto Drake May's back in the second half. Way too many completions. Some of them definitely his fault. Some of them I want to give some credit to, like someone like Tre'Davious White popping up out of nowhere for the Buffalo Bills. But really, Mac Hollins cannot have 8 targets if you're going to go beat an alien quarterback. He had twice as many targets as Steph Diggs. We didn't see much of Kayshon Boutte aside from the one catch in the first drive of the game. The Patriots wide receivers failed Drake May. Drake May missed a couple throws that he was hitting throughout the rest of the season. The ground game stepped up. And then on defense, they just could not tackle Josh Allen. So it was a tale of two halves. We'll get to the Josh Allen stuff, another gutsy performance, but an extremely frustrating performance from New England. And obviously, you can talk about a pretty iffy play by the refs, defensive pass interference late in the game. But really, they could not run the ball when they needed to in the second half to kind of take away the clock. And they absolutely could not tackle Josh Allen and James Cook.
It's just another example of first halves feeling like, well, this is going to continue exactly for the following 2 as well. And it doesn't happen. Like you said, the opening 2 quarters, this is how the Bills started. Punt, touchdown, and that was it. And then the second half, this is what it was from the New England Patriots. Punt, let's say arm punt by Drake May down in that deep shot. Then 1 play, 65-yard touchdown run by Travion Henderson. Then a 3-play, negative 7-yard drive. And then a 4-play turnover and downs 5-yard drive from the Patriots. And that's it. I mean, they went into halftime having to think that, oh, we're the best team in the NFL. Mm-hmm. We are scrambling with our super athletic quarterback, which it felt like the Buffalo Bills defense was unprepared for heading into this. And I'm not saying we've seen a lot of design runs from Drake May this year, but I think we can all use our eyeballs and see, we should probably have someone accounting for that dude who is a sick athlete and then demolishes us in the first half. And then, you still have a 65-yard single play touchdown run. And yet it's the 3-play, 7-play, 3-play, 4-play drives that they just couldn't jumpstart any first downs after that.
It was just a bunch of incompletions in a row. The interception for Drake May, it was 3rd and 25. It was actually a fantastic punt by him, kind of pinning him to the 10-yard line. But a perfect example, and a got-to-have-it situation in the fourth quarter, Hunter Henry's in the slot or in line, running an out route near the sticks. I thought Drake May threw a beautiful pass. It goes right through his hands. And then there's other times where you'll see, probably on the all-22, where it was just a bunch of coverage sacks. And if they weren't sacks, they're kind of Drake May stepping up and then kind of throwing the ball out of way, forced incompletions because, not because of the pass rush necessarily, but just because I thought there was going to be a lot of sticky coverage when we go back and watch the all-22. Tre'Davious White was all over the football, which was crazy because remember, Christian Benford, their top corner in Buffalo, was not out there. So this is the game where the Patriots, their record is awesome. They can obviously go on a run. They almost beat the Buffalo Bills here, and they really should have. But some of the weaknesses on the roster, you do see them. Like I thought the defense was pretty lackluster, and then the wide receivers didn't come out to play. And those were the 2 weaknesses that we talked about. And they got the explosive runs when they needed to because Travion Henderson's so fast. But the offensive line is going to have some weaknesses against more physical opponents than Buffalo Bills.
Many weeks ago, we asked the question, well, this Patriots team is ahead of schedule, right? And so if in a perfect world, they had the ability to add something next year, would it be an offensive line to kind of fix the running game or help improve that? Or would it be like somewhat of a top target? Now, it's going to be difficult when you're 11-3 and picking in the back half of round one to, oh, this is our wide receiver one. We're going to be able to draft him at that spot because, other teams might want those.
There's a lot of Keon Coleman's and Xavier Worthy's kind of in that range.
Correct. But I mean, it feels like the big difference in this game versus the first Bills game is that Stephon Diggs just gets 4 targets, 3 receptions, and 26 yards. Whereas in that first matchup, he was a mainstay of the offense, a target player, the reason that they won. And in this one, he's just like one of the dudes.
He ran fewer routes than Matt Collins. Matt Collins, like I said, had twice as many targets than Steph Diggs. It's just not good enough, So that was just a choice that they made, and it did not pay off. Do want to mention a couple things on the Bills side, obviously. Early in that game was super frustrating because the Bills punted in New England territory twice. So those punts early on the game, those were, I thought, very cowardly punts. There was also 2 challenges where Vrabel opted to challenge a Brandon Cooks catch. That got reversed. And on the flip side, McDermott did not challenge a Kayshon Boutte catch, which should not have been a catch that led to a touchdown. So in the first half, the coaching swing, Vrabel was out coaching McDermott by a mile. Obviously, in the second half, Josh Allen goes hero mode. And really what was so crazy about this game is there was not one moment where here comes a huge, long James Cook touchdown. Here comes a big yards after the catch play. Khalil Shakir had the only play that was beyond 25 yards long. All those drives that you talked about, it was about 5 in a row. All of them were like 6, 7, 11 play drives, just relentless chunk gains. So Josh Allen obviously getting it going in the scramble drill. James Cook was phenomenal, just kind of consistent, grinded out carries, but a lot of first downs there. Tons of successful plays underneath. Dawson Knox kind of squirms in for 2 touchdowns. James Cook gets out in the flats for another touchdown. That's 3 in this game. But really, this was just Josh Allen, too hard to tackle. And you kind of felt the weakness of the Patriots, kind of middle of the spine, a little bit slow. They just don't have like premier talent up the gut right now. And obviously, when you're facing James Cook and Josh Allen, you're going to feel that. But fantastic win from Josh Allen. Very clearly was the better quarterback in this one, as good as Drake May was in the first half.
I have to ask about the Patriots running game. I mean, the stat sheet is simply incredible. It's 14 carries, 148 yards, and 2 scores for Trevion, compared to Ramondre's 6 for 50, which 8.3 yards per carry. Not bad, but when you're staring in the face of a rookie's 10.6, that is absolutely nuts. I mean, Hendo all season, when he was a starting running back, has been extremely effective. And here, it seemed like it was, and we'll look at the chart on Stats versus Film this week if I make it there. It felt like way more Trevion Henderson, and then Ramondre Stevenson would pop in there in certain packages. And to me, that finally did pay off here for the Patriots, as you can see, because Trevion is super fast, going over 20 miles per hour twice.
Yep.
And on the 65-yarder, Drake May staying stride for stride with him, going over 20 miles per hour himself on that one too.
That's what I was going to say. Drake May was the reason why he scored that second touchdown. He reached 20 miles per hour. So that was really impressive stuff from Drake May out there. Yeah, both of those touchdowns were largely untouched. The reason why you go untouched is because you're faster than everybody on the football field. So that's obviously Ramondre Stevenson will never be able to do what Trevion Henderson did today. Hendo did only play 48% of the snaps. When he would get on the field, they would run the ball to him. He's just not going to be trusted in the pass protection game. And that's why Ramondre Stevenson played more snaps than Trevion Henderson. But the touches kind of went towards Trevion Henderson, but by a pretty wide margin. So I'll keep mentioning Raheem Mostert. Obviously, Trevion Henderson has a bigger ceiling than Raheem Mostert has, but how he's winning right now is getting to the edge of these big cutback lanes. And when you're faster than everybody, every other game or so, you're going to be able to rip off massive plays. And that's pretty cool to do when your left tackle is not even in there right now.
I see Dawson Knox with another 2 touchdowns after last week's multiple touchdown game too. Weapon?
No, not really. I wouldn't say weapon.
Okay.
They weren't like standing out. Dalton Kincaid did get tackled at the 2-yard line a couple times. Yeah, both of them were pretty effective overall. Go back and watch this game, and there's not a single play that like really stands out of like, oh my gosh, that was like a Josh Allen MVP moment. But just like the relentlessness that he had when someone asked Vrabel after the games, like, hey, like, what's up with this Josh Allen guy? And he's like, well, he's 6'5", he's 250, he's fast, he can throw the ball, and you can't tackle him. So that's why you pay him $60 million. And that was really like a pretty good summary of what happened in this game. There was like not a lot of turnovers. There's like no wonkiness. I think that these two teams are pretty evenly matched in general. Josh Allen went full superhero mode and they grinded out a close win.
Yeah. Patriots still, according to the Athletics playoff simulator, expect to win the division, 76% chance and likelihood of that happening. But this definitely makes it spicy the rest of the way, as the Bills are, I guess, technically one game behind, but there's a lot of different iterations that can happen from here.
The big deal for this game is the Patriots lost a huge percentage chance for the first round bye. So now the Broncos are at 64% chance, and now the Patriots at 17% chance. So that was like what the big time stakes were for this game.
Yep, because the number 2 seed, as of a few years ago, no longer gets a bye week at the start of the playoffs. Okay, I had both ACL bows, so we'll start with the LA Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, because as everyone knows, and I'll lead with the end, Patrick Mahomes suffers what is likely to be a ACL injury, and that not only knocks out the Kansas City Chiefs from the playoffs in week 15 of the NFL season. Imagine telling someone that back in August. Yep. But that is going to impact his 2026 start to the season at the very least, because his legs were a big part of this game early on. In fact, the opening touchdown and the only touchdown that they scored was a Mahomes rushing touchdown, 11-play drive, and a 3rd and 11 conversion to Travis Kelce to set it up. And yeah, Mahomes in pivotal games, as we know, uses his feet. I won't go like play by play and drive for drive here because it was only 29 points combined. But I do just want to point out that Justin Herbert by himself kind of won this game for the Chargers on offense. And I understand you can look at it, it's 19-29, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks, a 52 quarterback rating, an 52 QBR and 84 quarterback rating. It was much better than that. I continue to say it. When the Chargers put you in negative situations because of your offensive line, maybe the raw stats aren't going to look great, but what is fantastic is when you look at these isolated throws that Justin Herbert makes with bodies around him and moving off his spot. Those are the game-changing moments, okay? Just before half, for example, Chris Jones, just one of the best defenders in the league, all over Justin Herbert. He launches it to Trey Harris because QJ is out for this game along the left sideline, 37 yards, dot. Harris even kind of bobbles it a little bit. They have to review the catch. They call it on the field as it stands. He follows it with an even better throw, I would say, a 16-yarder to Keandre Lambert-Smith. Just a second catch.
I remember him.
As a professional. Yes. Preseason God, KLS. And he threw this while leaping into the air because he was expecting a hit from his front side. And so at halftime, that breaks it to 13-10, the Chiefs lead. And as you can tell, the Chiefs don't score another point from there because Justin Herbert, once again, a highlight reel 27-yard end over end. I mean, he is forcing this pass once again through contact, and the ball more than flutters, gets to a Rondé Gadsden that gets him down the 4-yard line. On that same drive, it wasn't just Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs also lost Nick Bolton for a period of time, Chris Jones to a hamstring injury, Jalen Watson. It was basically back-to-back-to-back plays. And okay, so we get to that point, and the Chargers, after 2 field goals, finally lead for the first time. Chiefs get the ball back. Again, consecutive completions here to Tyquan Thornton for 50 yards. Tony Jefferson, who had an amazing clean hit to dislodge a ball on 3rd and 4 earlier in the game from Rashee Rice, now gets ejected for a second huge hit here on Tyquan Thornton. It's helmet to helmet that left Thornton injured. 3rd and 15. Again, they're already in field goal range to cut this to a tie game. Mahomes throws an interception to Dion Henley, who was apparently a former wide receiver turned linebacker here. He blankets Kareem Hunt. Yes, this is 3rd and 15 on I'm assuming a wheel route along the sideline. In phase, pinpoints it, and then brings it down for the interception. But still, Chiefs have a chance. They get the ball at their own 8-yard line, 5 minutes, 20 seconds to go. Near midfield, Mahomes rolls right as he throws it away. A Chargers defensive lineman kind of dives his legs for a sack. He doesn't fall to the ground, but he kind of gets tripped up, or you can tell he knows that arms are around him. And then on basically his second step, you can see that Mahomes' knee hyperextends. It does kind of like that bounce that we've all come to expect here when it comes to knee ligaments. And every national insider has already reported that Patrick Mahomes has suffered an ACL injury. And so sure, Gardner Minshew has a chance to lead a field goal drive, and he just simply can't do it. So Chiefs are eliminated. Chargers, despite everything that has happened on that football team this year, despite, the running backs averaging 3.2 yards per clip, the leading receiver was Arondé Gadsden with 4 for 61, improved to 10-4 on the season.
Super gutsy win from the Chargers here. It buys them time to figure out exactly who's going to win the offensive line tryouts that they're holding. There was a rotation, I'm understanding, on the interior. They're trying to get some guys back, and then hopefully they can get Quentin Johnson back in time. But at least they've bought themselves time to kind of figure things out, because the last couple of weeks on offense, it's just Justin Herbert running for his life. And it sounds like, based off your recap here, that's exactly what happened the entire game.
This is my thing with EPA, man. Again, it's just 1.7 here. When Justin Herbert puts the team on his back and forces them and wills them into another win, it just, to me, doesn't encapsulate just how good of a performance. And yeah, he had an interception on top of it. But when you go back and watch it, you will see just outrageous plays that he makes. Now, to your point, we know the Chargers' offensive tackles have been miserable this season. It's backups to the backups to the backups. Okay. The interior was their choice. So yeah. Bradley Bozeman has been horrific at center all season long, but they play him because he's a leader, right? At right guard, they signed Mekhi Becton from the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles. He is splitting drives, flipping drives with Trevor Penning, okay? And then they have Zion Johnson at left guard. So it's not like this guard center guard combo has been injured and not their choice. It was their decision to go into the league, into the season with these guys, and that has been a big issue.
Yeah.
And it showed up a lot with the rushing attack. I will say, I understand Omari Hampton had 15 carries to Kamani Vidal's 12. Hampton had a few long runs at the end, and that 26-yarder definitely helps. It was really a 50-50, and I'm sure you'll see that in that chart this week too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you, did anyone kind of separate on tape between Hampton and Vidal? My assumption always just going to be the first rounder is going to kind of eventually separate from Kamani Vidal, but it hasn't been like that so far.
Spags was throwing a lot of pressure looks in the direction of the Chargers. Just by my eyes, a handful of them was when Hampton was on the field and they were getting a free rusher, either a defensive back or someone off the edge, just going clean on Herbert to force him off his spot. And so I don't know exactly what the snap counts were, but I would be surprised if Hampton played more. At the same time, that doesn't mean that Kamani Vidal totally outplayed Omari and Hampton here. It's just, again, I think it's going to prove to be a 50-50 spot moving forward for a team that is struggling to block up front for the running game.
Yeah, Hampton played half as many snaps to Kamani Vidal, even though the touches went in his favor. So it's one of those situations where Hampton's on the field, he's getting the rock, but he's not being trusted in all phases, and I think that's warranted.
I'm not sure what there is to say about this Chiefs team either. I mean, now we're, in your fantasy semifinals and the fantasy finals. It's Gardner Minshew at quarterback. You're going to have Travis Kelce. You're going to have Rashee Rice. I mean, this rushing attack has generated zero explosiveness all season long. It's probably just going to crumble the rest of the season.
Yes.
And then you head into 2026 and we'll see if Travis Kelce is on this roster next year. It's that simple. And Xavier Worthy was even in and out of this game and got tested for a concussion as well. And he returned. So a lot of players got injured for this team, and we've seen it all season long with their tackles, with their interior offensive linemen, and now we're seeing it with the quarterback and defensive pieces too.
Yeah, I'm guessing we're going to watch the offense crumble, and you're just going to see how bad, the offense really is without Patrick Mahomes. So I think Rashee Rice, you'll be able to start him, but aside from that, it's going to be really, really tough. And I think you nailed it with the Patrick Mahomes stuff. What's so difficult is, one, it might be a multiple ligament ACL tear. It's December 14th today. He's probably going to have surgery not right away and wait. So best case is he's rushing to get to week one. Probably more likely maybe starts on the PUP list, misses a couple games. And if he misses for a lot of next year, that also wouldn't be that outrageous too. What's so difficult is this year was the most he's ran ever. It's his highest attempts per game. It's the most yards per game by far at
yards
31 rushing
already.
Yes, it's It's career numbers. It's like he was playing playoff games the entire time, and they were only 500 with him healthy. And I think a lot of that is just because he does not have like a true like number one wide receiver. Like he's not been able to find the guys down the field. And in man coverage situations, they've been getting smoked. And then this game, a pretty quiet game across the board in an elimination game. So the Chiefs are going to have some like very, very tough questions to kind of answer here. I think definitely they got to get a running back. They're going to have to replace Travis Kelce. I'm assuming he's just going to retire. And then the offensive line's good, but you're going to have to dip your toes back in the wide receiver market again, despite spending top picks on Xavier Worthy and Rashid Rice. And I think the biggest problem on the team is the defensive line just has no pass rush, So I was looking at the pressure numbers here. Justin Herbert was under pressure some, but it wasn't an outrageous number. And that's because the Chiefs, aside from Chris Jones, who's highly paid and he's getting up there in age too, they're going to have a lot of issues to kind of solve here. And they'll be able to restructure some contracts, but right now they're bottom 3 in cap space heading into the next offseason.
If the season ended today, the Chiefs would have the 12th overall selection. That could get into the top 10. We'll see what other teams win around there. I mean, they have invested a lot in pass catchers. I hear you on not having anyone that could beat man coverage, but Rashee Rice is there. They invest a first round pick in Xavier Worthy. Obviously the contracts that they've had for Travis Kelce, and then, giving 10+ million every single year to Hollywood Brown. But then it's telling, like, when Tyquan Thornton is your best deep threat every single season.
Right. They need somebody with some size that can win like 3rd and 7. Like that's the type of profile. Maybe they're drafting high enough, and I know the wide receiver class is supposed to be pretty good, that maybe this is the year they actually find that type of body. But they've really missed that for a while. And I think once you remove Kelce from it and Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be scrambling around as much next year, you're going to have somebody that you can like truly rely on in all phases. And they just have not had that so far.
They will get the 3rd place schedule next season. They'll be 3rd place in the AFC West this year. So that'll at least be easier for them to attack in 2026. All right. Not very often we get 75 points scored in an NFL game. Rams improved to 11-3, 41 points. Lions dropped to 8-6, 34 points. Who stood out here?
I mean, pretty much everybody stood out in this one. Right away, early in this game, Matthew Stafford throws an interception to Aiden Hutchinson on what was going to be a tight end screen, where Aiden Hutchinson, I believe, just like knew what the play was going to be because Matthew Stafford canned it. He nearly brings it to the house. Right after that, Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown over the top. And after that point, I mean, Matthew Stafford was completely on a roll. Early in the game, big out routes to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams later in the game on the go ball pulls up lame. It's the same hamstring injury. They play on Thursday night. I can almost guarantee he's not going to play that one. I'll even ask, like, what exactly do we need to see Devontae Adams in the regular season for already after a huge win here? Maybe they just kind of save him for the playoffs because that's been a kind of a lingering injury. But really, it was the Matthew Stafford connection with Puka Nacua. And Puka Nacua near the sideline was completely unstoppable. I know he left with cramps, but it was just cramps. He's going to be good to go for this Thursday. He hangs on to like 170 yards in this one. Matthew Stafford was fantastic. But really, to me, the big storyline with the Rams in this one is once again how efficient their ground game was. So heading into this, they had the highest rushing success rate of the decade at 52%. In
Crazy.
This one, 69% rushing success rate. That is without a Lamar Jackson type to kind of add numbers to the box. This is just under center, old school duo, a little bit of outside zone, a little bit of pulling. And this is just Sean McVay lighting up a Lions defensive line that, for the most part, for the last couple of years has been very strong. So that was a 100th percentile rushing success rate outcome in this one. And that's crazy to me because Matthew Stafford could easily win the MVP this year. And then as a side hustle, the Rams have the most efficient run game in a very, very long time. So if you're planning on beating this team in the playoffs, be prepared to score 35 plus. And in a lot of these games, 35 is not even the right number.
This is why in the start sit show, like when we talk about, I don't know, Breece Hall or Ashton Genty or Quinshon Judkins, these teams that are projected for 13, 14, 15 points. And then you look at the Rams that are projected for 30, and you know that they are just exchanging drives with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. It's why I can't get over suggesting Blake Corum in those situations, despite, players that you drafted in round 1 or round 2 in your drafts. It's because we've gotten to this point. We know that the Rams backfield is arguably the best in the league. And they generate touchdowns, and here you get it. Kyron Williams, 15 carries, 78 yards, 2 scores, and Blake Corum, 11 carries, 71 yard and 1 touchdown. And that's not even talking about whatever passing down work the 2 guys get. So it's basically splitting what we previously got with the Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery into this one. Yet people just, to me, are not treating Blake Corum like 2025 Dave Montgomery, and they should.
I think it's especially going to be true for the next couple weeks when Devontae Adams is probably not going to be out there, and he's been a huge part of the goal line package. If we're actually just getting goal line touchdowns to the running backs, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, all that stuff came pretty close to the goal line there. That's just going to be easier for him to score touchdowns. Other player I wanted to throw out here, Colby Parkinson. His numbers in the last month, we'll talk about in stats versus film when I actually have the model ran. He's going to be top 5, top 10 in a lot of the categories for the tight end position. In this one, he had 2 scores. One of the scores, debatable. I think, was probably down at the 1 yard line. But in the stat sheet, we're calling it a win. And on tape,
one of the scores, he actually didn't score. But
he did moss him. It was a fantastic play over the top in traffic. Great play by Colby Parkinson. I think he's actually pretty good. And I went back and looked at it over the cap. He signed a multiple year contract. And Tyler Higbee's a free agent. So like dynasty shares, this multiple tight end stuff with Sean McVay is not going away long-term. So down the stretch without Devontae Adams next year, I think they play the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. The Seahawks are being shredded by tight ends. Colby Parkinson is the appreciated hero of the Rams offense right now. And he just happens to score 2 touchdowns, 75 yards at a pretty disgusting position.
Okay. We spoke glowingly about this Rams offense. Should we start having just a couple questions about their defense? Because this is 34 points here. We've seen them, give up some big chunk gains to wide receivers over recent weeks as well. At one point, I thought this was one of the best defenses in the NFL, but are they generating the same amount of pass rush? Are they covering as well as they were, a month ago?
No, they got absolutely shredded in this game. The Rams secondary is a complete weakness. Ahkello Witherspoon was like just a healthy scratch in this one. Emmanuel Forbes has just really regressed. Early in this game, it was this kind of the same old Chargers defense, a lot of quarter shells. And what does Jared Goff do and Dan Campbell? They said, we're just going to throw it over the top. Just post route, post route, post route. Jamison Williams had one for a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had one for a touchdown. J-Mo had big crossing routes. Amon-Ra St. Brown had big crossing routes. So it's the same type of play that won. Jared Goff throwing the ball right down the seams was on a terror. In the first half, he was doing absolutely nothing wrong. I thought Jared Goff played fantastic football in this one. You saw him slide up into the pocket. He was really feeling himself. In the second half, there was minor adjustments. It seemed like the Rams, instead of staying in 2 high shells, they rotated a guy in the box. They had someone kind of roaming over the middle of the field, and they had a deep safety back there. So it was a little bit harder to push the ball over the top. There's just not these simple quarters beaters. That Chris Shula game plan adjustment at halftime did slow down Jared Goff just enough. They weren't quite as efficient. So I agree with you. The Rams secondary is by far their Achilles heel, but hopefully they get Quentin Lake back and eventually Roger McCree. Have to check in back on their injuries, but the Rams offense is way better than the weakness of the Rams secondary. So unless a game like the Panthers happens where there's a bunch of turnovers and stuff like that, you're going to have to be very, very comfortable throwing the ball over the top. Yeah. And the Lions were able to do that in this one, but I'm not sure if every other team across the league could do that.
Yeah. And we know other than, 3 defenses across the league, these kind of go in waves, right? Mm-hmm. Even great defense isn't sticky week over
But
week.
These guys are wide open. Amon-Ra and J-Mo were wide ass open for a lot of the game. And that should be at least a little bit concerning for Rams fans.
Right. But for example, if the Rams somehow face the Seahawks again in the playoffs, we know Chris Shula has dialed up things against Sam Darnold. And I think Chris Shula is a very good defensive coordinator. So we will see. Okay. I need to ask about the lines a little bit more. It's way more Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of touches than David Montgomery. Yeah. However, David Montgomery's the one that gets a touchdown. For everyone that was able to get to the playoffs with Jahmyr Gibbs, he did 0 for you, just 58 yards here on 17 touches. In comparison, like you said, the passing game, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 13, 164 and 2, and J-Mo 7 for 134 and 1, which, by the way, is so cool to see from Jamison Williams versus the inconsistency early on this year. it's just, to me, obvious. He's a very, very good wide receiver talent out there. And everything that they were running in combination with him and Amon-Ra was fantastic against this quarters coverage.
Yeah, JMO really stood out. There was a very funny moment. The Amon-Ra St. Brown screen touchdown, which was about like from the 7-yard line. Jamison Williams thought the screen was going to him. So you see Amon-Ra looking at Goff like this, and JMO's right next to him like this. And then after Amon-Ra catches the ball, JMO, like the last second, tries to block somebody, gets absolutely pancaked. So JMO is trying to score touchdowns on plays that weren't even designed for him. But yeah, it was a fantastic game for all of them. Unfortunately, with Jahmyr Gibbs, he played 81% of the snaps. You know, he just did nothing with it. And I kind of understand the game plan. There was one Jahmyr Gibbs drop in the flats, but the Jared Goff pass game was like absurd. It was so good. Like there was no reason to be running the football. If everything down the field was working, then why would you be running the football? And so it's like one of those situations where you score 34 points, you play 81% of the snaps, you're one of the fastest guys on the field, and you just have a kind of a goose egg fantasy performance. That happens. It's just called range of outcomes. You just got to deal with it. And hopefully the Jahmyr Gibbs drafters had a bye week because he's probably going to go crazy next week.
Just noticed that both teams combined for 5 for 5 on 4th downs here too.
They're nasty.
Yeah, nasty. All right, let's talk about another injury. We'll get there in a moment, I guess. But the Denver Broncos, Green Bay Packers, you could argue, at least record-wise, that these were, if not the best teams from their conferences. Maybe a Super Bowl preview in some people's eyes. But the Broncos at home improved to 12-2 and now have easy command of the AFC and the number 1 seed as they beat the Packers 34-26. There was a little scuffle, scrap before the game. That hitting carried over into it for all 4 quarters. Early on, Packers settled for 2 field goals. Josh Jacobs got stuffed on a 3rd and 1, I think twice. And then next time on a 3rd and 6, Romeo Doubs was well covered. Broncos on, I believe, their 3rd series get their first touchdown. They finally convert on a 3rd down, 3rd and 5 to Cortland Sutton, then a 3rd and 7 to Lil Jordan Humphrey, who I didn't know he was back on the roster, back in Sean Payton's good graces after he was with the New York Jets earlier this year. But if you thought Lil Jordan Humphrey was an obscure wide receiver to catch a pass, the first touchdown was a 20-yarder down the left sideline to Michael Bandy, which I think that sounds more like a kicker name than a wide receiver name, but here we are. Broncos lead 7-6. Packers then respond through Josh Jacobs. 3rd and goal from the 14-yard line. Josh Jacobs wheels down the sideline, grabs the ball with both hands, holds it with Drake Greenlaw, who has one of those massive knee braces on his elbow, can't like lift his right arm. He can only compete for the target with his left. But even through that contact and trying to swipe it away, Jacobs comes down with the touchdown grab. He had a glorious day with that touchdown catch and also 12 carries, 73 yards and a score. But the Broncos get it back, get to a 2nd and 2, which I believe is Sean Payton's favorite down and distance, from watching way too much Bo Nix tape. If it's 2nd and 2 at like the 40-yard line, he is running some type of shot play or double move or throwback screen or whatever you want to call it. This time it's a 42-yarder to Cortland Sutton. Drive ends with a touchdown. Again, a 5-yard sit route by Lil Jordan Humphrey. Nick throws it to the right leverage in the right spot. That brings us to halftime, where actually the Broncos lead 16-14. The Packers lead 16-14. Out of half, Riley Moss called for defensive pass interference on 3rd down. To me, my eyes, great coverage. He has that same arm bar that everyone does as he's tracking back for the football. Some way, somehow, referees call it. Very next snap, Josh Jacobs takes it 40 yards to the house. So now they lead 24-13. You think, man, with how they've played all season long, second halves, Micah Parsons, they're going to win this one. And you think it even more because they force a 3 and out. And after that play, Jordan Love takes an immediate shot on the next snap. Patrick Surtain intercepts it, diving 1v1 man coverage down the field against Christian Watson, who lands on his left shoulder. Serious injury, it looks like. I'm not going to know what it is, from a shoulder injury to a clavicle or whatever, but he misses the remaining contest. And then after that, Bo Nix produces a perfect 3rd quarter where the Broncos score 13 points and simply don't look back. I mean, we can talk about other completions to Lil Jordan Humphrey, where he rolls all the way to the right and then goes to the left and throws it 22 yards, or this run out where he draws the defenders and then flips it to Troy Franklin for 11 yards. That drive also into the 14-yard touchdown on a rope, back right corner to Cortland Sutton. At this point, he has 3 touchdowns compared to 3 incompletions. Next series, they get on their -40, their own 40-yard line. They go for it on 4th and 1. He gets it on a quarterback sneak. A couple plays later, it's when the injury happens to Micah Parsons, non-contact left knee injury on a pressure. He's already been reported as an ACL. And then, the game winner, basically a 23-yard touchdown to Troy Franklin in a zone with 4 Packers around him. So this is that Bo Nix performance. I think that we all were hoping what we got in week 1, but they were still winning without it, Hayden. They're 12-2, and you get it here with 23 of 34, 302, 4 touchdowns, and then another 10 rushing yards.
I don't know how you can't take the Broncos as like very serious Super Bowl contenders at this point. They've lost 2 games. They happened in week 2 and week 3. They lost by 1 point and they lost by 3 points against the Chargers and the Colts. And at the time, the Colts were absolutely rolling. Right now, they have a 64% chance of having a bye week, and they're looking really good there. They have not lost at home this season. They will be playing all of their games in the playoffs at home, and we've eliminated Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, 2 potential boogeymen. We'll see about Lamar Jackson, and we'll see about Josh Allen. But really, this is like one of the weakest AFCs, and this defense I know is really good, and that's sticky. This offensive line is extremely good. That's sticky. Sean Payton we know is good, and then Bo Nix is emerging. So like I was kind of just like looking through the Super Bowl winners on like just kind of where defense is kind of dragged, kind of mediocre offenses. Ben Roethlisberger in his second season won the Super Bowl. He wasn't like an extremely good player at the time. There's one like the Joe Flacco years, the Eli Manning years. Like obviously those guys, as their careers developed, became better and better. But there's some times where just a really good defense, you have the right season at the right time, and then Bo Nix can make some plays on the move, or the ball is thrown downfield, get completed, and they can absolutely go on a run. So like this team doesn't get chatted about. I think Denver people believe in them, and then everybody else doesn't really believe in the Broncos. And at what point, like who else do they need to beat here, or just have a first round bye where they can't actually be treated as contenders? And I think Bo Nix kind of developing a little bit would be like the last missing ingredient for more people to kind of catch on to that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The opening, I would say 3 games for Bo Nix this season were horrible. They were miserable. Guess what? That was the case during his rookie season. Maybe we just keep in mind moving forward that September Bo is different than December Bo, you know? And look, are always going to have plays from Sean Payton where maybe he believes in himself too much, either these screens, I'm not going to call them trick plays, but manufactured touches, all the sort that can somewhat limit his quarterback. But at the same time, you know, he always gets compared to Drew Brees, because I'm sure Sean Payton told all the media people that, oh, I see Drew Brees when I look at Bo Nix, despite them playing the game very differently. Like I would say Bo is much more high variance in his game than Drew Brees ever was. Like Brees would just pick you apart, like long sustained drives and not dink and dunk, but, oh, you have a void here. I know exactly where it is. My vision's exceptional, and I'm going to work in this confine of the pocket. This is, later career Drew Brees. Bo just always wants to be moving, right? He always wants to, maybe change the launching point or change the vision of what the coverage is going to be and the angles that they have to cover and all these types of things. And when it works, man, it like really works. And on top of that, like you said, amazing defense, top 3, if not top 1 in the league. Great offensive line. That really helps too. And then you have a quarterback who has excellent pressure to sack rate. So we know that in drives that you don't take a sack, or when you do take a sack, let's say, that tanks the percentage chance that you have of scoring any points on it. So at the very least, all 3 of those things give you a platform of success in a year when a lot of those teams, other teams, opponents of yours, don't have 2 or even maybe 1 of those dynamics at play for their squad.
Yeah, it's like throwing I think Courtland Sutton's like a underrated real player for them. He can just be dunking on dudes, and he can win in man coverage. So he's kind of like a player that the Chiefs don't have, and it's kind of hard to find reliable X receivers, and they have one of those. So it really just comes down to can they get some explosives on the grounds with RJ Harvey? We know he's capable of that. Could you get the right manufactured play for Marvin Mims or Troy Franklin or Bo Nix scrambling around to win a close game? Or could just Bo Nix kind of progress in year 2 which happens all the time. Like you don't ever know when like the big leap is coming when things kind of dial in. But yeah, like ever since they lost those 2 games early on, they're 14th on offense and EPA per play, which isn't fantastic. But when you got a top 2 defense, top 3 defense, and you have a bye, then who knows what can happen in the playoffs. So I just think it's beyond time to like treat them as like they have a actual chance of reaching the Super Bowl at this point.
I personally want to shout out RJ Harvey. He now has 10 touchdowns on the season, his rookie year. That's freaking awesome. And while this backfield was split 3-4 different ways to open the season, it's very clear of who's getting the football from this backfield now. I mean, in this game, got to have it. RJ Harvey gets 19 carries. Jaleel McLaughlin, 2 carries. Adam Prentice gets stuffed on his only 4th and 1 attempt at fullback. Tyler Bidet gets stuffed on his only like 3rd and 6 escort screen out there too. So RJ Harvey, while he did fumble on an early drive, I think has continued to win this backfield when given the opportunity. And he is a part of the big plays. And especially, I would say, their red zone touchdown success rate. So many of his touchdowns this year have been in the red zone. And he's a crucial piece of that for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think the offensive line is going to be helping them out in those situations. So yeah, really excited.
On the Packers end, I said after they lost Tucker Kraft that he was such a pivotal piece for them in yards after catch that already knocked them out of the Super Bowl chances for me. They played really well over these last few weeks. Hayden, I'm back. I don't think that they can win the Super Bowl without Micah Parsons. And if Christian Watson misses an extended period of time too, with what looked like to be another serious injury for him, that is too many hits. That's like your 3 best players, arguably, this year on offense, other than the quarterback, and then your defensive superstar that gets you off the field and is the difference maker because the other edge rushers have just not done enough for the Packers this season.
Yeah, really tragic injury for Micah Parsons. It comes at the part of the season where you just don't even know if he's going to be fully himself next year or miss part of the season, especially at that position. But he's young enough. He's a freak athlete. It's modern medicine. So hopefully he can bounce back. I agree with you. The defense is going to take a huge step back with that. And they play like a lot of just kind of zone coverage. And that can be picked apart against veteran quarterbacks who they'll see. Like you're going to see Matthew Stafford, perhaps. You can see obviously like Jared Goff and those types. We'll see about the 49ers. They can just kind of pick you apart if you sit in that zone coverage. So that's going to be really, really bad for them. And I think the Christian Watson is a really big one too. He's freaking hospitalized with a like chest shoulder issue. So we'll see about that one. Luckily, Matthew Golden popped in there at the end and made a couple big plays, but there's a big
He'll have to play a lot more. I mean, he had a sweet back shoulder 27-yard gain on 3rd and 11.
Right.
He's had a extremely slow rookie year. Now, we say all this stuff. The Packers are at home. It's already come up that they're 2.5-point favorites on the road against the Bears this week.
Well, they're number 1 right now in EPA per play since week 4. So the offense, like Jordan Love has to go absolutely
changed
crazy
without Christian Watson and Micah Parsons. Like the math isn't going to math the same to me.
No, of course, it's not going to math the same. Jordan Love has to go absolutely crazy on the downfield passes, and that might have to be to someone like Matthew Golden. So like all of a sudden, like the chances that this can click are substantially down. And not to mention, right now they are going to be having to win on the road for a lot of their games in the playoffs, even if they get in. So yeah, tough.
They are still 94% to make playoffs, 62% to win the NFC North. They're scheduled the rest of the way. It's on the road in Chicago, then versus the Ravens, and then on the road against Minnesota in week 18. It might sound crazy. The key player for them kind of has to be Matthew Golden, even if, LaFleur trusts him or not. Like now is the case. Now is the time you have to. One of the interceptions went off of Dontayvion Wicks' hands, I believe. And so you had Jaden Reed mixed in there with some, underneath manufacturer stuff. They actually did some cool things in bunch sets for him to get him free releases. They got him out of the backfield with the reception too. But, that's only one layer here. Like Christian Watson and the downfield explosives and also on comeback routes and sideline routes has been the difference this entire Packers offense since they lost Tucker Kraft. And so who's going to do that now? That's the big question. And the only answer, because everyone else has been playing this entire time other than Jaden Reed, is Matthew Golden. And so to me, it's questionable if that's possible.
Yeah, I've always thought this entire rookie season, while he's not been playing, I thought his tape has actually been good. Now, this is his chance to go prove that. to be true.
All right. The most important game of the day was a lot tighter than any of us expected. It took a final second field goal for the Seattle Seahawks at home to beat the grandfather, the 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, who throws for 120 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, takes 1 sack. Lead with whatever you want here. You have free reign.
Well, we got to just talk about the Phillip Rivers part of this. We all expected the Seattle Seahawks to win this game. It just really comes down to what the hell was Phillip Rivers. The first couple plays were run plays. Everyone knew that was coming. And on his first drop back, he throws it to the right sideline. And that thing came out like a total duck. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. And for the most part, the rest of the game was fine enough for Phillip Rivers. His EPA per dropback was basically 0, which is like a 30th percentile performance for Phillip Rivers across the league. That's kind of what it felt like. He obviously was making a lot of clean decisions here, but was not able to push the ball down the field whatsoever. So it was dink and dunk, dink and dunk. 2 of my favorite moments, Phillip Rivers slips on the logo in the middle of the field on his like drop back, gets up, no one's around him. I mean, it took him forever to even get up, kind of falls forward for a couple more yards. He looked really big once he got the pads on him. And then my second favorite moment was the touchdown to Josh Downs, where they're marching slowly down the field. Everything was a really slow march for the Colts. They finally get Josh Downs a touchdown. He goes crazy. They cut to the sideline. Everybody on the Colts sideline is just laughing. They're not like pumped. They are just laughing because Phillip Rivers was able to get it done. Fast forward, the Seahawks are constantly marching the field, and then once they would get to the red area, everything would stall out. We've talked about this plenty of times before with the Seattle Seahawks. Lots of explosives in the offense, but the red zone efficiency right now is just not very good. So the Seahawks kicker goes 6 for 6, including the game winner there, for all 18 of the points. The Seahawks had not scored a single touchdown. Leatu Latu stood out to me. Louis Anarumo had a great game plan from the Colts side of this thing. But at the end of the game, Phillip Rivers has a chance to win this. He runs the ball a couple times. There was multiple, like within the 2-minute drill, just straight up carries. Shane Steichen was very evident that he was okay playing for a 60-yard field goal. But on a 4th and 2, the decision was, are we going to try to hit this 60-yard field goal, or are we going to try to move the chains, have a better opportunity to score a shorter field goal, and actually close the game out with 0 seconds left? Shane Steichen decides, let's bring the kicker out. He drills a 60-yarder. It's the tiniest kicker I've ever seen, by the way. He looks like he weighs about 60 pounds.
I believe it's Blake Grupe, former Saints kicker, who
was
terrible there.
He was. And I think Nick Underhill had a story where they wouldn't even let him through the gate. The security guards thought it was like a prank, that he looked too tiny to be on the roster. Yes. So he looked that tiny, and he drilled the 60-yarder. That's just the state of kicking in 2025. Unfortunately for Phillip Rivers, they get a good moment there, but Sam Darnold rips a couple big-time throws, and then in comes the 6th and game-winning field goal over there. So for the Colts, their season is pretty much eliminated. They could have squeaked out a win. We'll see if they're going to go back to Phillip Rivers once again, or if they want to see Riley Leonard, who, by the way, was a full participant in practice. So they decided to go with Phillip Rivers. I'm curious if they're going to keep rolling with it. Phillip Rivers, it was a fun story, but we got 0 fantasy production out of anybody. Obviously, first game against the Seahawks, that's going to happen. And then the Phillip Rivers, his final attempt, throws it over the middle, and that thing was hanging out like a blimp. And for an interception, like one of his only passes that traveled beyond 15 yards straight into the Seattle secondary.
We've done the Colts thing every other week. They only have a 13% chance of making the playoffs this season. I saw a lot of discourse this week of, I can't believe they're starting Phillip Rivers. Why not pick up, a backup from another team, or Mike White or someone like that in someone else's practice squad? Riley Leonard did practice all week despite getting banged up last week. When I saw the first touchdown, I guess the only one that he threw to Josh Downs, and I saw like the sideline erupt, to me, that was the answer why they went with Phillip Rivers. Because all week long, when you sign someone like him, someone that your locker room has either played against or watched growing up, knows is, a potential Hall of Famer out there, that at least gives you hope at 8-5 when the world is telling you that your season is over. It gives you some inkling, some optimism that, hey, we can upset in Seattle this team that is 10-3. And for that reason, to me, it was the right choice. Like, I know they lost here, but it was a lot closer than we thought. And I just think sometimes we lose sight of how, all these people have feelings and personalities, and there's, more time spent behind the scenes than there is the 3.5 hours in front of the cameras for us. And to me, the decision actually paid off here for Phillip Rivers, even if I didn't watch a single snap of it.
I think it was versus anybody else you could have signed off the streets. I think that Phillip Rivers would have given you the best chance to win this game. Now, I think the other part of the discussion, is it sad that Phillip Rivers is the best option, that instead of Riley Leonard coming from college, a good athlete, that he's not the best opportunity to win a football game? I do think there's some truth to that the college game is so different than the pro game, that the amount of available quarterbacks that you can go to is like smaller than what the NFL product would want. But Phillip Rivers fought. He got hit a couple times, bounced right back up. He was chirping at dudes as much as he can. There was not that much to chirp about. But in terms of like Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, it's a no-brainer. You cannot start any of these guys no matter what. This team's just going to try to win with defense. Now, I will say that defense, there's something to this. Reminder, Sauce Gardner's out. Travarius Ward, their other corner, he was out. DeForest Buckner was out. The rest of the defensive line really stepped up. Sam Darnold, he only took 1 sack, but you will see he was never like in command until like the second half of the game, where I think that they got to play action a little bit more, and he started to rip some big throws. But that first half was pretty worrisome for the Seahawks, and that was like Latu making some big plays. They were sending some pressures from Lou Anarumo. So they definitely gave it a good effort here on defense too, despite not having their top 3 players. And then also Colts left tackle, Bernard Ryman, he left with an elbow injury, went straight to the locker room. It did not look pretty as well. Their right tackle, Braden Smith, with another concussion. He was like thinking about retirement early on. He's on injured reserve. So whoever's going to be quarterbacking for the Colts moving forward, without their left tackle, without their right tackle. So for the rest of the season, unfortunately for Indianapolis, it's all for show. This team's not going anywhere. As gutsy as this one was, just kind of shows you like the different tiers in the NFL.
Quickly, a couple more questions here on the Seahawks. I see 74 yards for Rashid Shaheed, and then I look on the final series. He gets 17 yards and then another 8-yarder to set up the game-winning field goal kick. Was he more involved? Was he more involved because, this was a tight game, they were trailing? Why do we get more Rashid Shaheed here?
I think this was a game where they just needed him to create a big spark, because the first half was bad, but this was the first time where Rashid Shaheed actually ran more routes than Cooper Kupp. We've been kind of waiting for that. This was the flippening. This won't pop up in the box score, but at one point, Rashid Shaheed one-on-one, a big go ball. He thought there was a defensive pass interference. I didn't think that there was one, but that was a big shot play opportunity, potentially for a touchdown that goes incomplete. So this was the game that felt most Rashid Shaheedy since he's been traded. It mattered just a little bit. You get the 74 yards, but he was out there for 33 of 40 dropbacks running routes, which is by far the most it's been. AJ Barner had a couple plays underneath, showing some athleticism with Elijah Arroyo out. But Jason, Shaheed, Barner, those are their best 3 playmakers in the pass game, and that's now the order that they run in terms of snaps and dropbacks.
Yeah, season's long. I mean, maybe Shaheed is a big time player for them when they get to the playoffs. And obviously he had a kick return touchdown last week too. Okay. Positives over. A game where the team is favored by, 14 points, whatever it was here. And then Zach Charbonnet goes 8 for 31. Ken Walker goes 9 for 17. What the hell?
Dude, I mean, the offensive line is just a total disaster. They were not in a rhythm whatsoever. Yards before contact, my first time looking at it, I can just tell you it's bad. Yeah, yards before contact, -1 for Kenneth Walker. So, yeah, they're rotating them, and they were just not in a groove. Like the whole thesis with Kenneth Walker was that they were going to be up by so much, you're going to be a bunch of carries. Well, guess what? They barely won this game. They needed to do it on the last drive of the game. So there wasn't this like game script. So it was Charbonnet played more snaps than Kenneth Walker. And that's because they trust him more in pass protection, and they were not able to get big plays down the field. And that's why I wanted to bring up the Colts defensive line, because like the Kwity Pays and a defensive tackle, Adi, and then you have Latu, all these guys, it's hard to pronounce their names. They're actually really good players for the defensive line. And that was without DeForest Buckner. So they held their own, but that Seattle Seahawks offensive line, definitely was a weakness of the team.
All right, we'll close out this segment before we bring Brentley in with the Panthers just freaking dropping it. Okay, after Thursday, the loss for the Bucs, all the Panthers needed was to win in week 15, win in week 16, and then they won the NFC South. And instead, they lose to the New Orleans Saints 20-17. I think when people go back and watch this game, they'll see a number of things. One, I think that the Saints just outcoached the Panthers defensively, especially, and then offensively in terms of pivotal situations. For the Panthers, the issue was they kept running into brick walls. I mean, Rico Dowdle, 16 carries, 49 yards, 1 touchdown. That touchdown was on the first series of the game. That's an average of 3.1 yards per clip. Chuba Hubbard, 8 carries, 29 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. In fact, Bryce Young tied with Rico Dowdle as the team's leading rusher. And Bryce Young was having very good success in the passing game. I mean, early on, it was a 6 sideline throw and more important catch by Jalen Coker, toe tap for 15 yards. Later on, he beats 4th and 3 pass rush, an unblocked defender. Then on 3rd and 11, the throw is just behind Tedder McMillan. He gets both hands on it, but it's ripped away. So that only allows them to take a 10-7 lead into halftime. But out of half, a 50-yard catch by Xavier Legette on 3rd down as Bryce Young gets demolished in the pocket. The pass floats in the air, but no one is near him. And then 2nd and 21 after a penalty later, Bryce Young to Jalen Coker for just a beautiful double move, sluggo, 32-yard touchdown that you couldn't place it better in the front pylon. But Dave Canales just wanted to show how, let's say, stubborn he is running the football. And in a pivotal 4th and inches play, Chuba Hubbard does not get it as the offensive line generates 0 push against this above average Saints defense. And then on the Panthers defensive side, Tyler Shuck just crushed them when given the opportunity. Panthers were up 17-7. Okay. Then the Saints go on and score 13 straight points. This is all in the same drive. Mason Tipton fumbled on a jet sweep, went directly into Christian Roseboom's hands, but he drops it and the Saints recovered. Same series, Panthers allow a 3rd and 13 conversion because Ejiro Evero all day long in those 3rd and long situations was sending 0 blitzes, pressure looks, and the Panthers were just playing off coverage and getting burned in those spots, and the Saints wide receivers were winning at the catch point. Roseboom has a direct line to Shuck to have a sack. Instead, he leaps because Tyler Shuck head fakes, and then 2nd and 24, they put him in automatic 1st down on penalty. One of 6 first downs that the Panthers gave the opposition with penalties in this game. So, yep, Saints win it with basically a walk-off field goal. Remember the name, Charlie Smith or Smythe, who has been part of the NFL Pathway program for only a couple weeks. They booted Groupie. They brought in Smith, and he is an insane kicker that won it with what would have been a 61-yarder. But again, on the final drive, Tyler Shuck scrambles up the middle, is short on what would be a 4th down, and Lathan Ransom, a rookie, leads with his shoulder into Tyler Shuck's shoulder, and that gives him a free 15 yards to make it a 46-yarder, basically a walk-off.
Charlie Smythe, 6'4", 210-pound kicker, by the way, versus my boy Grupe, who's 5'7", 156. So quite the upgrade there in terms of the physicality in the kicking department. Turns out to be the difference here. You said it, and there's a little bit of shock factor there, but the data kind of backs us up. You said above average Saints defense.
Very good.
With who? That's the crazy part about this. Brandon Staley kind of in his bag here, winning a lot of close games or keeping the games pretty tight here. That's a pretty wild thing to say, but they are actually 11th in EPA per play on defense this year.
Definitely a fringe top 10 unit when you watch every single week. And granted, those 8 through 17 can wax and wane, but they kind of play as a cohesive unit, and they stuff the run. They are perfectly built to prevent what the Panthers are trying to do with 12 and 13 personnel and then generate no push off of it. This is so disappointing for a Panthers team that you think can turn the corner and make this season a memorable one. And then they just lay a total goose egg, and it wasn't because of the quarterback. It was because, again, a 4th and 1. Here's one thing, okay? If teams, and this goes for anyone, if teams refuse on 4th and 1 to go with the quarterback sneak, which, Hayden, you know the numbers, probably the best avenue, especially 4th and inches, is the move. If you don't want to put your quarterback in that spot, whether he's Bryce Young's size or Lamar Jackson isn't good at it, so you use Mark Andrews, or like Patrick Mahomes got injured on it previously, so you use Noah Gray, whoever else, or like Sam Darnold, instead you go to AJ Barner. All these other teams, you have to have a package. You've been practicing since last May. Put a tight end under center, put a running back under center. You have to have someone that you're not going to go back 3 yards, and instead you simply go forward and get push and find the crevice and get the 3 inches that you need. The Panthers have never run a quarterback sneak this season, or a tight end sneak, or any of that. That is a failure to me of a coaching staff to be in a preparation to not have a package that fulfills that exact need. Because if they got that play, they would have won this game.
I want to go to the other side of the ball real quick on Tyler Shuck. Was there anything to learn about him? Because the more games he wins, that means the draft positioning gets lower and lower, which means the odds of him finding a replacement gets lower and lower. We just watched Lenoris Sellers go back to school. We'll see about the Oregon quarterback. It might just be Mendoza and nobody else in the first round. I haven't studied any of these guys, but this is just what I'm hearing from the people that know some ball. So with Tyler Shuck, another win here. They're not going to be picking in the top 3 anymore. Tyler Shuck, is he looking like he's going to be the 2026 NFL quarterback for the Saints? And should they actually roll with it?
Yeah, they picked 7th overall if the season ended today. And so that is probably outside of the quarterback range here. And he finishes with 272 and a touchdown. It was, again, a lot of those pressure looks that got zero pressure on them. So if that's the case, that one goes with quick decision-making for Tyler Shuck to understand, I'm going to fill this area, or I'm going to take this one-on-one situation, this man coverage, and throw it kind of high and away from defensive backs and give my guy a chance. Devon Vele came up with those catches. Juwan Johnson tipped one to himself and came up with one of those. And then Chris Olave's touchdown, JC Horn tries to undercut it, and the ball just has too much heat on it. And that's why Chris Olave gets in for there. Yeah, I mean, again, both teams average 5.3 yards per play. It was some, again, big time throws in crucial situations for Tyler Shuck that allowed the Saints to win. And then the penalties when they didn't get into favorable situations that the Panthers gifted them first downs and longer drives because of it. But I think the Panthers are now 0-12 when favored over the last 12 games being favored. I mean, that is so bad.
You'll run into the sample size with the Panthers. You can find the craziest stat on either side.
Well, and I'm sure that goes back to like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Last time they were favored over the last 12 games. Maybe even back to Cam Newton days.
Yeah, you know? I would not be surprised, man. They haven't been favored very often. What's the scenarios for them? If they beat the Buccaneers twice, they have to
beat the Bucs twice, and then
if they split it, then it's who knows? We just have to kind of play.
Yeah, because the other game's the Seahawks. I highly doubt that they beat the Seahawks. But yeah, I mean, again, it could have been win today, win next week. Panthers are in, and instead they have to beat Tampa Bay both home and away. It's just a unfortunate, inexperienced young team, and I would say young coaching staff on that, where like Evero kept sending, he obviously came into the week and said, oh, that's a rookie quarterback, I'm going to send the house. And then you can't get pressure when you send the house, and you get blitzkrieg on them, the penalties. And then again, I would say Dave Canales being ill prepared in certain situational aspects and failing.
Yeah. Good for Shuck. I mean, that's a lot of pressure looks, and that was the kind of the MO coming out is he can't handle the pressure. He falls down, throws it to the other team, and doesn't want to take
He did also take 5 sacks, I will say.
Yeah, but he's willing to take a sack. That was part of the thing. Is he willing to do it? Like
totally.
All that stuff seems a long time ago with the Tyler Shuck conversation now.
Yeah, for him. You will love watching some of the throws that he made into tight coverage. And for some reason, as we've seen with JC Horn and Mike Jackson, they've covered, let's say, better wide receivers, and then they have just an inability to cover these Saints wide receivers.
Yeah, it happens. Speed kills.
Speed kills. What,
Chris Olave, man,
out there running a 4.4?
Oh, it's Vele. I thought it was Chris Olave.
No,
Chris Olave
had 5 for 69.
Yeah, no, Vele is there's his lack of speed kills.
Speed kills for Vele.
No, Chris Olave. I thought he was the one that had the big touchdown here.
All right, we're bringing in Brentley Weissman for this segment of the show, which is 3 NFC contenders beat up on bad opponents. That's what I'm calling it. Here we go. First one, Chicago Bears 31, Cleveland Browns 3. Brentley, DeAndre Swift, one of the biggest performances people that stuck by him all season long in the playoffs. 18 carries, 98 yards, 2 scores. A lot of us thought that maybe that's the pathway that Ben Johnson wanted to beat up on this Browns defense. And it wasn't just that. We also had some sick Caleb throws on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears offense today, guys, was outstanding. You mentioned it, DeAndre Swift. The way he runs is so just pleasing to me. Just hard-nosed, one cut, no-nonsense type of runner. Gets north and south quickly, breaks tackles. I'm a big DeAndre Swift fan. I thought he was outstanding today. His 17-yard run that resulted in a touchdown was so fun. He did like a weird kick in the middle of it. It was really entertaining, but he had a great game. And then Caleb, he wasn't asked to do a ton today, but when he did, it was outstanding. I mean, he had some of these throws. The one that was a touchdown to DJ Moore. He was rolling to his right, kind of throw across the body on a rope in the back of the end zone. Just sick stuff from Caleb today. On his first touchdown to DJ Moore, you see him kind of just layer the ball in the back of the end zone on a corner route. I thought it was just overall outstanding. Luther Burden, guys, he was terrific today. Obviously, they were out with Rome Odunze, but Burden stepped in. You saw the explosiveness. You see what they can do after the catch. He's going to be a real weapon for them in years to come. I thought he was great. Just overall, just an outstanding performance from the Bears offense. You can beat you guys in so many ways.
Yeah, I think the DeAndre Swift part is really interesting to me because the way that you were describing him, I agree for this year, but I would not have described him like that up until we got Ben Johnson, who I think has just found the right formula for him where he's not having to make as many decisions and he can just one cutback lane and then he's off and racing. And the data supports that. It's the most 10 plus yard carries he's had in a single season of his career. And there was back in with the Philadelphia Eagles, he had 300 250 opportunities in some of those seasons. So this is just a different version of DeAndre Swift. So he's only 26 years old. So he's under contract for next season. But Ben Johnson's found something very real with DeAndre Swift in this offensive line. I just wanted to shout out that the way that you were describing him, you could not have said that 2 years ago. He was an extremely, even last year, super frustrating player. You're just seeing a lot less of that since the bye week.
Yeah, his second touchdown, I mean, he ran through people. And that is not something that you previously would thought. It really has felt like since the bye week, and we all joke about sometimes halftime adjustments or bye week adjustments. This Bears team has been one of the best rushing attacks in the league since the bye week, and they have figured out what works and what doesn't, and they have focused in on their strengths, and they continue to roll with them. Yeah, I mean, the Caleb throw to DJ Moore in the back of the end zone was just nutty. He was rolling to his right, just rifles his pass. It kind of goes through this tight window and somehow, some way goes straight into the, kind of getting tipped around in this congested space too, and goes into DJ Moore's hands. He had 2 touchdowns, 4 for 69 in terms of catches and receiving yards. Those with Rome Odunze about 5 minutes before kickoff being ruled out with his stress fracture. And then you have the 2 rookies. I mean, these 2 rookies also, Brentley, are very different than what we got early season Bears when these guys weren't touching the field. And Luther Burden, in terms of, once again, receiving yards, is this team's wide receiver 1 with 6 for 84 and 7 targets. And then Colson Loveland chips in for 4 for 63 as well.
Yeah, I thought both of those 2 players made a lot of plays. Loveland in particular, because a lot of the Bears today were actually having drops. Kyle Monunga had a drop. Cole Kmet had a drop. And Loveland made this just beautiful catch where he had to pluck the ball. It was a low throw. He plucked the ball to convert a 3rd down. And you just see the reliable hands he has, the chemistry he has with Caleb. I think he's only getting better. And I think really the future for him is just going to be unreal. I think he's outstanding. And then again, Luther Burden, I mean, he had some plays today where he just made defenders look stupid. He gets to get the ball in his hands, and his short area quickness, his change of direction, making defenders miss is just remarkable.
Did he leave with an injury?
He didn't. So he left. It was midway in the 3rd quarter, and he didn't come back. Now, obviously, at that point, the game was out of hand. So, I think even if he could have came back, there was no need to bring him back. But he did leave with an injury. But based on reports, I don't think it's going to be that serious.
Good. Yeah, I think it was an ankle injury for him. just keep doubling down the Luther or well, I think Luther Burden, but I think Colston Loveland is like the one. He's going to be the main character of this offense for sure. Super
Luther Burden's pretty fucking good, Hayden.
He is good, but like for a freaking tight end, Colston Loveland moves so differently than everybody else at that position. I think he's going to look like an all pro type of guy.
Yeah.
Luther Burden definitely is making a lot of plays. I think he had a big drop in this one, but that happens. He did have a drop. I watched it.
No, a lot of the guys had drops today for the Bears offense. It was, this could have been a lot worse, I think, because it
was negative 10 degrees.
Exactly.
It felt like.
Yeah. I was going to say the frustrating part was the Rome Odunze stuff. He kind of rushes back. It's negative fucking 10 degrees and you have a stress fracture in your foot. What do you think is going to happen? This probably feels like concrete out there. Like what were the Bears?
Made no sense. Made zero sense.
Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns offense here, because Shedeur is coming off of a 350 passing yard game, and here it's 18 of 35, 177, 3 interceptions, 5 sacks taken for 35 yards. I'll be the first to say one of those interceptions, not his fault. Jerry Jeudy perfectly placed pass along the right sideline. Jeudy somehow basically hands it off to Jalen Johnson at the 2-yard line, who then walks through the most nonchalant, cool interception you'll see. So that one was not on Shedeur, but were the other two, and the other 17 incompletions.
Yeah, I mean, the pass you're referencing, Josh, he put the ball on the money. I mean, that was a great throw, beautiful ball placement. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, I don't know how do you not catch that? But the other ones were on him. Just a lot of the same stuff, just drifting in the pocket, kind of falling back, not throwing from a solid base. And then he really should have had 2 more other interceptions that defenders dropped. So the day was not great for Shedeur. He did have 2 explosive passes to Isaiah Bond multiple times. So that was good. You still see the aggressiveness. So you like that. But really today, he was under a ton of pressure, checking the ball down to Harold Fannin. I think they targeted him 14 times today. And just the average depth of target for Harold Fannin was just very minimal. So that was very clearly his security blanket, because he was getting pressured a ton today. The Bears defense was just chasing him down, and he was just running for his life the majority of the game. So certainly a step back from last week. But I did think he made enough plays where obviously you're going to roll him out next week and can continue to see what you got in him, but definitely not his best day.
Is 4 backup offensive linemen for Shedeur Sanders. So we got to keep that in mind. No David Njoku. Both the backup running backs are out there, but at the same time, it was negative 22 EPA on the day. So that's never good.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is just one of those matchups where the running back can get all the work and get all the snaps, but just 12 for 21 and a long run of 4 yards against a Bears defense.
Oh my gosh.
That has been diced up all season long. I mean, it shows you kind of how important starting offensive linemen are when this team is down 3. So what's fascinating here for the Bears, Brentley, I know Hayden and I talk all the time, so I would love to get your thoughts here. So Bears are actually 1 game ahead of the Packers right now, but the playoff simulators give them less of a chance by about 30% to win the NFC North. They play each other next week, so that's kind of a decider there, right? If the Bears win that, then they have a 2-game lead with 2 games left. 62% down to 32%. Where are you at just overall with the Bears as contenders right now?
Well, I do think given Green Bay's injuries today, they're going to, be in a better position to win next week. So I think Chicago's sitting pretty. Based on what I saw today, if their defense, and obviously the Browns offensive line was decimated, if their defense can get pressure on other opposing quarterbacks, that would be massive. Because I do think the Bears defense is still just living and dying off of turnovers, and eventually there's gonna be a regression there. Because I don't think they have the most talented secondary in the league. I think there's holes that could be exploited there by the better offenses. We saw that last week with Jordan Love. So if the front 4 can get pressure and mask some of the issues in the secondary, I think this team could compete. Because offensively, I mean, I've seen what I needed to see. As long as Caleb just limits his classic kind of boneheaded mistakes that are just few and far between, this offense can win in so many different ways. It's hard to defend. And their running game will travel. Caleb has the talent to air it out and create big plays. So to me, I think their defense, if their front four can get home, they could win against any NFC team, in my opinion.
I think they can beat anyone if
Yeah.
Caleb has a good game from quarters 1 through quarters 4. I think they can win a playoff game if he, has his patented second half spectacular
Yeah.
games. It's just like getting it in rhythm early on, like he did here, which to me is like the huge difference for them on offense. And then on defense, somehow, some way, they're going to create pressure, and they just haven't been able to do that all season long.
Yeah.
And then hopefully at some point you get both Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon on the field in pivotal situations.
Yeah, Gordon went back to IR, so we'll get our questions answered. Packers, Niners, Lions the next 3 weeks. If you can get any pressure on those offenses, that'll mean a whole lot more than Shedeur.
But to me, with offensive line questions and redeveloping that entire group this offseason, I know Myles Garrett got a sack and a half, but even getting out of there versus a sack and a half. Which,
I'll take 1.5. Yeah. I'll take 1.5 sacks.
He's 1 sack away from getting the record here. I know Ben Johnson had a really good game plan for that too. So it's a great first season with the combo together.
Yeah, I was going to say the last thing about the Bears is I do think the Ben Johnson effect can't go unnoticed. I think he's a legit superstar. And, I do think he just gives the Bears a coaching edge against pretty much most NFL teams. Maybe not in the next few weeks with Kyle Shanahan and things like that. But for the most part, you're not really getting better than Ben Johnson.
Another NFC force bullying another squad, albeit only 13 points in the end. But the San Francisco 49ers beat the Tennessee Titans 37-24. Brock Purdy, seemingly a spectacular day here, Brentley. 23 of 30, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. His only sacks went for a loss of 3. Ricky Pearsall popping up for 6 for 96. George Kittle, 8 for 88. And then Juwan Jennings catches a touchdown on 2 of his 3 passes here.
Yeah, the Niners offensively could do whatever they wanted. Brock Purdy was just a classic. The Niners are the best NFL team at just beating down bad opponents. They're just the most front-running team, but they do great at it. Brock Purdy was fantastic today. You mentioned it. Only 8 incompletions, 3 touchdowns, spread the ball out to his playmakers. He throws such a good ball to allow his receivers to get yak yards. I think that's a really underestimated trait that Brock Purdy has. He was outstanding today with his legs. He had multiple long scrambles. He had one where he did a pump fake. It was hilarious for a 26-yard scramble. He was celebrating. No, I thought Brock was really efficient today. Really good, strong debut or performance from Brock. And then for me, guys, the Ricky Pearsall, his route running is elite. His speed really stresses the defense. He got nicked up on the first play of the game, was able to come back, missed, I think, maybe 1 series, and then it was just dominant. He was the clear kind of go-to receiver today for Brock Purdy. Juwan Jennings, 8 in the red zone. We know that's kind of where he shines. I think George Kittle was a monster. He was an absolute monster today, breaking tackles, getting yards after the catch, just a great touchdown in the end zone. He was just phenomenal. Overall, the 49ers were clicking on all cylinders today, and the Titans really couldn't do much.
Yeah, I think the 2 things you said right there that stand out to me is Brock Purdy using his legs. So coming out of the bye week, that was really good to see him because with that toe injury. And then the other one, Ricky Pearsall, when he's getting targets, he's very good. It's just when sometimes you don't have to throw him the ball because everyone else is wide open underneath, but getting some explosives out of him really raises the ceiling of the offense. That's really the question long-term is there any path where the offense is just so damn good that even with the bad defense, they can go on a legitimate run here? Because they're 98% to make the playoffs. Yeah, they're for sure going to be in. They haven't beaten anybody good in a very long time. They're the matchups they've had recently. They beat the Giants, Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, and Titans recently. They go get Phillip Rivers next week, so we're not going to learn anything until we get to the playoffs here. But are we approaching where the offense is so damn good that they can actually get spicy here down the stretch?
And the one thing I'll say on that is I think the defense actually plays well as a unit in terms of the cohesiveness and moving together and, the zones overlap and everything of the sort. It's just they don't have any talent left on that side of the ball. And at some point that might end up hurting them, or it might not. Maybe they just play average enough defense where the offense can be the reason why they win all these games.
Well, in this game, the Tennessee Titans offensive line, which is not good, allowed a 10% pressure rate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be where the 49ers have to be an A-plus offense for it to matter. But they do have the potential to be an A-plus offense. We saw it today.
When Cleveland Farrell is your best pass rusher, you have major concerns. I will say Malik Mustafa, he was making plays today, just destroying people.
He's the man.
He's a really fun player to watch. I think he's one of the more underrated safeties in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned, I mean, Cam Ward today, he had a lot of time to sit back there. Wasn't getting a lot of getting pressured. Made some big time throws. The throw he had to Gunnar Helm was great for the touchdown. But again, coming here every week, I feel like I say this. He had a couple just brutal misses. Van Jefferson at the end of the first half was wide open on what would have been like a 50-yard touchdown, and he missed him by 5 yards. And so just the lack of consistency for Cam Ward and the Titans offense minus Tony Pollard is just really hurting that team.
Closing thoughts on Tony Pollard, who in back-to-back weeks has been a running back one, and previously I don't think he did that one single time.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had 14 carries for just about 100 yards. I mean, that stat line, it looked really good. It wasn't just empty stats. He looked explosive. He was breaking tackles, making defenders miss. A lot of the things I saw last week with him, I saw this week. The wide zone stuff, he's excellent at. The vision, the contact balance. It's really this is the Tony Pollard we know the past 2 weeks. And what we got before that, that's the question, because this is the Tony Pollard that we've seen in years prior. I thought he was outstanding today.
One final here. Philadelphia Eagles 31, Las Vegas Raiders 0. I don't know if we spend a single moment on the Raiders end, but on the Eagles, 12 of 15 for Jalen Hurts, 175, 3 touchdowns. Those 3 scores, 2 of them went to Dallas Goedert, 1 to A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith sandwiched in between with 2 for 50. And then Saquon Barkley, 22, 78, and 1 score. Raiders, nice deodorant, nice Band-Aid here for all the concern for the Eagles, just like we all expected when these guys didn't even play the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Raiders came to the Eagles at the perfect time for Philadelphia. I mean, what a slump buster this was, just to get everything back on track. Jalen Hurts was efficient. He was able to push the ball vertically to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Both of them had explosive plays down the field. Dallas Goedert would have had 3 touchdowns had he not dropped a perfect pass in the end zone. His 2 scores are off shovel passes kind of close to the goal line. Saquon was efficient, looked good, looked explosive, moved the ball. I mean, the Eagles did whatever they wanted. Their defense was just all over Kenny Pickett. Felt like he was hit. I think he was only sacked 4 times, but I swear he was hit every single play. The team speed that Philly has on defense is remarkable. Nakobe Dean, he might be playing one of the best linebackers in the NFL. The past 2 weeks, he's just been so noticeable. He's everywhere. He was phenomenal today. Just overall great team win, but you certainly playing against the Raiders that are just absolutely lifeless. That'll do it to you. I will say last take for the Eagles, Tanner McKee came in the fourth quarter, 3 for 3, 33 yards. Look, I mean, he looked kind of nice. The preseason stuff was good. He's going to be kind of nice, I think, next year, man. I do think so.
Yeah, I went back. Tanner McKee is under contract for next year, as is Jalen Hurts. So we'll see if another team starts calling for Tanner McKee. Whenever he steps in there, he does look pretty.
Is there any positives we can take from the Saquon stuff? We are obviously going to be playing him. Still, though, 3.5 yards per carry, a long run of 17. Is it just more of the same and you just got an accumulation factor here?
Yeah, I think so. It didn't look great, but also didn't look bad. He got yards. He made defenders miss. He looked explosive. But the 17-yard run was really good. You saw him make a defender miss and have excellent kind of vision and things like that we know he does. But I wish there's more consistency. I wish we weren't seeing the 1-yard runs, the 2-yard runs that we're seeing now. Because last year it was 5 yards, 20 yards, 80 yards. That's not really what's taking place today and really for most of the season. I do think, they were really committing to get him the ball a ton today. I think they know they didn't really need him to win this game. but I do think, he's still Saquon. You're never going to bench him, So I do think today was at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah, success rate was at least up for him just a little bit. But once again, the Raiders. But I do got to ask just real quick for Brock Bowers. Is there anything that they were doing defensively against Brock Bowers? Because I watched Patrick Surtain line up and just like shadow him. Like he was in line, and they would have Patrick Surtain the last game just like shadow him from in line, the corner in line. I was like, I couldn't believe it. Was there anything that the Eagles were doing in particular?
Not necessarily. I know it was a lot of Georgia and Georgia crime. Nakobe Dean plastered him twice in coverage. So I think. The Eagles just have really good personnel to match up. I know Cooper DeJean was on him quite a bit as well. But for the most part, guys, I mean, Kenny Pickett couldn't even begin to try to deliver a pass down the field. He was running for his life the entire day today. It was brutal. So it's really hard to judge, the Raiders pass catchers.
They had 75 yards. They had 75 yards.
It was ridiculous. I mean, they couldn't move the ball. Like, it was painful to watch.
All right. Really,
that'll do it.
Thanks for joining us. All right. On to the games that we did not get full eyeballs on because there were a ton in week 15. First one, Ravens 24, Bengals 0. We can talk about Lamar Jackson here in a moment. 150 yards and just 8 completions, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 sacks taken. Maybe more importantly, 26 yards on 2 scrambles here too. But I kind of want to ask you about the Bengals here. Like Joe Burrow comes back from a major injury. T. Higgins, we know, not playing here because of concussion. You have Jamar Chase with his comments afterwards. All of that investment in an offense, and you get 0 points. That will not stop fueling the flames of maybe some big changes happening here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it just stood out to me after the game. Well, obviously 2 weeks ago, Joe Burrow's, his comments, like how much he even likes this and what's the point of playing football. And then this week with the Jamar Chase stuff, they asked him, like, would you make changes? And he's like, yes, I would absolutely make changes. And like, usually players are like, oh, it's like the players, we gotta, make the changes ourselves and stuff. But that's like comments from your 2 best players talking about the scouting department, the coaching, just the lack of investment to the facilities and stuff. So it's pretty miserable over there. We'll see that the T. Higgins contract is one that we'll have to pay attention to moving forward, just the way that the Bengals kind of orchestrate things. Everyone always talks about the 3 of them together. Could you win when you're shoving up that much money to 2 wide receivers and a quarterback? It's not going to matter if the defense plays like this. So at some point you got to hit on your picks. But yeah, truly a wasted season. We knew that when Burrow went down earlier on. We had a cool Flacco moment, but this is a fantasy football team, and you don't win Super Bowls when you look like a fantasy football team.
On the opposite end, Derrick Henry, just like the first time these teams lined up, gets like 11 carries for 100 yards, but nothing more, nothing less. And then Zay Flowers finally catches a touchdown on way to 3 for 68 and 1. There must have just been like no plays in this game, period.
Yeah, this game was over before you even knew it. This game was actually incredible. I will say from the clips I saw from Lamar Jackson, he's looking healthier. I thought he was moving around better 2 games ago, and then that big boy throw to Zay Flowers for the touchdown did stand out. Rasheen Ali got wide open out in the flats for his touchdown, but that's like back-to-back games where that version of Lamar Jackson looks a lot different than what week 8, week 9. So they're moving in the right direction. Obviously, shut out the Joe Burrow offense on the road. That means that the defense is making some big boy plays too. So we'll see. This is at least they got a chance now.
Yeah, Steelers Dolphins on Monday night is massive here for the Ravens. Because if a Steelers loss happens, then they're both 7-7, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way. All right, next game: Jacksonville Jaguars 48, New York Jets 20. I love seeing this as a man that has continued week after week, month after month, year over year to be patient about Trevor Lawrence. Here he goes. 6 touchdowns, 20 of 32, 330, 6 scores, including 5 carries for 51 yards. He made some insane out of structure cross body throws. And at the same time, Liam Cohen got his pony personnel working and just took advantage of these Jets defenders and namely linebackers. And both the pair of the quarterback and the play caller were in their freaking bag.
That's back-to-back weeks that Trevor Lawrence's same play, that rollout from to his left, just down the field, an absolute laser beam. I mean, if we're getting that version of Trevor Lawrence, then like let's go fully party. And we haven't had the back-breaking turnover in a little bit. After the game, Liam Cohen said we love to pass the ball in Jacksonville, which I thought was really cool because a lot of coaches are like, we want to run the ball. And they're like, no, we're leaning into throwing the ball down the field. Trevor obviously enjoys throwing the ball to Jacoby Myers over the middle. You get the Brian Thomas big plays, but really Travis Etienne comes out of there, the huge 50-yarder in the flats. And then they had a couple like design stuff. So they just completely annihilated the Jets linebacker group, like in particular in this one. That's what happens when the running backs are wide open. But Liam Cohen was, I mean, there was guys wide open all the time. And then on top of that, Trevor Lawrence, you start making plays out of structure like that, you're just a totally different quarterback.
Can I make a slight pitch of why these last 2 weeks it might have felt like, oh, now Trevor Lawrence is playing really good football? I get the backbreaking turnovers and brain farts that he's had in the past. But at the same time, let's keep in mind, while they were winning, this Jaguars team was making horrific mistakes, in terms of alignment, being in the correct position, false starts, illegal formations, all that type of stuff, like stupid, crippling, dumb decisions. And every time and every game since Jacoby Myers has come in, a true veteran presence that has played in multiple offenses and will actually catch passes over the middle of the field instead of dropping those passes over the middle of the field. It seems like everything's consistent. And like that intermediate portion of the passing offense, we talked about it with Liam Cohen in Tampa Bay. That was the bread and butter. That's where they won everything. Brian Thomas, while he does pop here for a 4 for 66 and another score, we know like probably at his best, it's 15, 20, 25 plus yards down the field, especially if we're not getting the screen stuff anymore. So Jacoby, in lieu of probably where Travis Hunter was going to operate for this team, is now creating some level of consistency in the area where Liam Cohen wants to build his entire passing attack around. And that's part of the reason to me, while it's felt so much better of these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think all these, the running back receptions too, kind of goes into that. It's what Liam Cohen, when he was with Tampa Bay, like the offense was going because they were getting a lot of free production, and like to be good in the screen game, if your running backs to be wide open, like that takes a lot of chemistry and just kind of development across the team. And I think some of the best teams, like when I think like the best Andy Reid years, their screen game is just so lethal. And I think that's just a sign of a good, well-coached team that's kind of in their groove, is in the screen department, running backs catching the ball out in space and going. You only do that if you're pretty smooth. And right now, Liam Cohen's got this team in an absolute groove. I
mean, it's a sick ability to pivot as a play caller when, your running backs average 2.7, 2.8, and only 1 carry to Bashal Tutin. And then they just get all their production in the receiving game. Like it's okay, let's just ditch the running game other than the quarterback scrambles. And then we'll just unleash all of our best passing attack assets and get these guys out in space. That's pretty sweet.
I think Tutin had like a finger injury. I don't know the extent of it. And then just Travis Etienne, he was a free agent. He's going to make so much money, and he's not leaving Jacksonville. Like it seems like Liam Cohen loves him now.
Okay. On the Jets end, again, I did not watch this, but my guy, Adonai Mitchell, makes a fingertip touchdown catch, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 58 yards, and a score. I think it started good for Brady Cook and then finished miserably. Like that touchdown drive early, then 3 interceptions, 3 sacks as you go along. And then, Breece Hall, 12 carries, 23 yards. I know like Isaiah Davis is the one that plays deep into this game as when it gets out of hand for 9 carries, 58 yards and a score. So that like is heartbreaking for people that played Breece Hall, expecting him to get 90-something% of the work. And then the backup is the one that gets the score.
Yep. That's the risk you run into when you're the Jets and you're supposed to lose by 2 touchdowns every single week.
Moving on, Houston Texans 40, Arizona Cardinals 20. We can lead with Jacoby Brissett being the first quarterback to hit over 20 fantasy points against the Houston Texans. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
We can also lead with Trey McBride, I think, having the NFL record with 5+ receptions in 16 straight games now?
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yep.
In this one, 13 targets, 12 receptions, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Michael Wilson, who was in and out because of some injuries, 11 targets, 5 receptions, 54 yards, and a score. This all happens because I believe before Jacoby Brissett even took 1 drop back and 1 completion, they were down by 10 points.
Yeah, I was just going to say Texans 40. That's the storyline here. Texans 40. Like if the offense could put up numbers like this, we know the defense is going to go crazy in the playoffs. Then they're one of these teams that suddenly in a weaker AFC, they have a chance to go upset some teams and go on a little bit of a run here. So Nico Collins right off the bat, 57-yard touchdown, just so fast, gets another one. Dalton Schultz, that one was out of the pocket for CJ Stroud. So we've mentioned that a couple times in the last month, of him just kind of break and contain a little bit and throwing on the run. So that's all great. And then thankfully, the Woody Marks touchdown, we got that in before he was in and out of the blue 10, leaves this game. They said he was going to be able to come back in, but it sounds like they got pretty lucky there where the ball just bounced right into his lap, and he scores a rushing touchdown that's in fantasy could be graded as a fumble recovery touchdown. So hopefully you got fantasy points for that. You should have. But unfortunately, he could have had a monster game because Jawar Jordan rushed for 100 yards.
Well, the third crazy stat here, Jawar Jordan is the first Texans running back to rush for over 100 yards this season.
think about like July. They had Mixon, Chubb, Woody Marks, Damian Pierce. Then the first one is Jawar. Unbelievable.
Yep. But yeah, Woody Marks did get there barely. Did he not
was going to go crazy.
I don't see it.
No, it's the fumble.
Oh, it was a fumble
thing
that he ran.
They ruled it as a fumble. But
Yes.
Some fantasy leagues, if your commissioner's an idiot and they don't count that as like fantasy points, then you're shit out of luck.
It technically was a direct snap to him.
Well, D'Amico Ryans after the game said he got lucky and the ball bounced.
Oh,
so you're not going to.
How could that not be a fantasy touchdown for anyone else?
It
How could
absolutely
that
should
not
be a
be
fantasy
6
touchdown.
points?
Your commissioner's an idiot. If you are listening and you didn't,
if
get
you started
that,
Woody Marks and you do not have 6 points for a rushing score, you have to show that play to your fantasy commissioner and add in that 6 points after the fact. We have to all boycott and quit this game if that does not happen for you, person out there.
Yes, for you. I completely agree.
I can't wait to watch the Nico Collins stuff. I can't wait to, and then that was it. I mean, Jaden Higgins 1 for 4, Xavier Hutchinson 1 for 16, no Jalen Noel, no Christian Kirk, no one else. For a defensive minded head coach, getting 40 points put on you this week, 45 points put on you last week. I understand your players are hurt, but how can that happen?
Yeah, it's year 3. He's not gonna survive over there. Just wanted to say, Michael Wilson, we got lucky. That was a full blown garbage time touchdown. Now we do deserve our garbage time touchdowns as well, but gets to the end zone late. Trey McBride's going to go round 1 fantasy next year, and he absolutely should. He's unbelievable. I think his quads get bigger and bigger every single week. Like watch when he's running across, there's a broadcast angle of him. It's unreal how big his legs are. So he's strong as an ox, man.
Okay, last one. Washington Commanders 29, New York Giants 21. Giants once again stay competitive but lose. As the Commanders get their 4th win of the season, we got just before the game, Chris Rodriguez inactive. So Bill Krosky-Merritt early on, 18 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin 3 for 69 and a score. They're only 2 offensive touchdowns of the game. I would say the biggest story here was maybe Abdul Carter's best performance of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He had tackles for loss. I think he had sacks, some fumbles, and really the Giants' pass rush is what got them back into this game in the second half, because we had like Brian Burns forcing fumbles or intercepting passes, whatever it was. And that gave the opportunity here for the Giants offense, but just in the end, it didn't quite get there.
Yeah, my 2 big takeaways here is Bill finally gets it done. I'm definitely counting that Chris Rodriguez eruption spot. I'm counting that as a win with Corey Krosky-Merritt going for 96 and a tutty there. But also just kind of a measuring stick game for the Giants. This is my biggest takeaway. The Commanders stink, man. Marcus Mariota's backup quarterback. Their defense is tragic. For the most part, got blown out here. And Jackson Dart is like fighting for his life. Like you hit on Jackson Dart, given the cost. Abdul Carter steps up, but the lack of depth everywhere on the roster is so glaring. If they keep Joe Shane, and when you're getting blown out by the Commanders at home, they've lost like 8 in a row. To me, this is just like a measuring stick game. If Joe Shane, if you want to show that, hey, this team is actually not that far away, I deserve another year, which is to me crazy. You can't lose to the Commanders at home, So like this is another one of these like Joe Shane moments. She's like, the Commanders stink and they beat your ass.
Yeah, they stink bigly. Jackson Dart, another trip to the blue tent off of
that was
I think it was Dak. I think it was a goal line manufactured run. I mean, is it getting to the point where Mike Kafka can't keep his job as an OC? I already said it a couple weeks ago when like he had just horrific go for it or don't situations on 4th downs in the past, but I don't think he's contributing any favors to himself here, is my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like 5.7 yards per play is not great, but the offense is just not great. I mean, my boy, Darius Slayton, 53 yards, but he could have had multiple touchdowns in this one. I saw a couple drops from the poor guy. I mean, I'm the poor guy. I'm the poor guy here. But he did hit the higher on his receiving, which
okay. Noted. The only game we didn't talk about was Thursday night. Falcons 29, Bucks 28. I know you had some conclusions on this one after watching Kirk Cousins 30 of 44, 373, 3 touchdowns. I would say this loss for the Bucks has less meaning now that the Panthers also lost on Sunday.
Yeah, this feels like a lifetime ago, but man, the Kyle Pitts stuff is obviously it was the third high scoring tight end game ever. Most in the playoffs. It's like the most since 1983. He's running by everybody, like the knee injury is so many years ago. He's a free agent, but I was looking at the numbers because I'm gonna write like up a top 10 best free agents by position. I think he's going to get the franchise tag from the Falcons because the other players around him are kind of where the franchise tag is. Instead of committing to a long-term, slap the franchise tag on him and make him prove it again. But man, you don't go 166 yards by accident here. Caught 11 of his 12 targets. Really was phenomenal here. And the same thing with Kirk Cousins. He's going to be a free agent after they release him this next offseason too. So cool win for the Falcons. Largely meaningless. They're going to keep him outside that top 10 draft pick graphic. That's the whole point.
Totally. I saw a lot afterwards of which team is Kirk Cousins going to start for next year. I get it. And he probably will be a starting quarterback next year, if not just for the Falcons. I would also say this is like the perfect game for him where he's played Todd Bowles defenses or other defenses and seen all these pressure looks that give young quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks fits all the time. And I would say with this version of the Bucs, without Kalijah Cansey, without some of these other, and their inability to, create disruption up front, and then, their cornerbacks going in and out and being hurt and all this type of stuff, that Kirk Cousins probably had the game slow down for him more in games like this than other quarterbacks have. So it was like the perfect outcome for him to showcase that on Thursday Night Football and to thrash a blitzing pressure secondary and replace a whole bunch of spots with the helps of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, we'll say with Kirk Cousins, totally agree with that point. But he's also still throwing the ball to David Sills and Darnell Mooney was dropping passes. So.
I've also seen him throw the football and the football not get there.
Yes, no, and that's going to be a problem. I think he's going to be 38 years old next year. But like with Marcus Mariota, everybody, you have to count to 32. Find 32 quarterbacks next year, start slotting, and there's going to be some weird, like Justin Fields was a starter this year, like shouldn't have been a starter. There's going to be some quarterbacks that are undeserving starters next year. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to be potentially one of those guys.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments down below how much you think Kyle Pitts is making in free agency next year, or if he just gets franchise tagged by the Falcons and we go all the way back. So that's like 13.8 million or something. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, real quick. There were some tough, rough post-game scenes with like the players and Todd Bowles losing it. Again, now they still have a chance. The biggest issue though is, and it's so tough to recognize this in season and in the middle of a heater, but how Baker Mayfield tight ropes when he has quality performances and stacks those, where we said it every single week. No one plays the game like him. Throwing in the face of pressure, dropping his eyes, escaping sacks that other quarterbacks would take and fitting passes the tight windows that others simply aren't. When you get a cold streak, it looks real bad, and it hits you fast. And that's exactly what's happened here. I can't say if that's just because the variance or the injury or, wide receivers dropping passes and all this type of stuff. But here we are. And this Bucs offense just does not look good right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense was a total train wreck. And like that's the real reason why they lost. But Baker Mayfield has regressed. I will also mention the offensive line has been dealing with injuries. Both guards are out. Tristan Wirfs a couple weeks ago had missed that game. And then, Baker's playing through something. So, there's just the Emeka stuff's gone up and down in this one. Chris Godwin scores a touchdown, but was largely quiet. Otherwise, Mike Evans took a couple of humongous shots. Like he landed on his back a couple of times. So luckily he's walked out of there okay. But 132 yards was like the standout performance from him. And then Bucky Irving's same old stuff. He needs the offensive line to be really good to like have those crazy games because Liam Combs just not coming back through that door, and he's not going to get the 40-yard screen receptions like that's going to Travis Etienne. right now. So you kind of feel the no Liam Cohen-ness of the Buccaneers offense on top of it.
Do you think I'm being too harsh on a Baker Mayfield game where it's 8.1 yards per attempt?
Well, I mean, took some big sacks here, and like it just he's just so high variance. I'm just kind of taking it for what it is. Like you can't get too crazy when he's riding hot. You can't get too low on him when things are falling apart. He's like the quarterback 15 or whatever it is, and there's going to be some moments when he looks awesome and some moments when he looks like crap. I think I think Todd Bowles was just really mad at the defense. Like he was super pissed off on the like big third down conversion. The fumble, the Darnell Mooney fumble, the screenshot where there was 6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers around him. I could not believe that. You're talking about magic on the Sit Start show. That was some magic right there on how the Falcons were able to recover that stuff. So I think Todd Bowles was really mad at like the effort and the communication of the defense. And I think he should be mad at them. And at the same time, he is the defensive head coach.
Yeah. And I'm sure all Bucs fans are like, oh, look what Liam Cohen's doing in Jacksonville. We could have just promoted him in-house and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And let's not forget the soap opera of what happened with Liam Cohen staying and then leaving 24 hours later and all that type of stuff. The two teams, while Tampa still is favorites to win the NFC South, are in very just different top to bottom situations here at this moment.
Beat the Panthers and you're in.
All right. That does it for us. I believe we covered every single game. Thank you all for tuning in. I should say it. At some point, I will be taking 2 months off the show. It's because we're welcoming a first child. That could happen tomorrow. That could happen Tuesday. That could happen Wednesday. So at some point, you will not see me. You'll see Hayden probably by himself unless he brings on guests.
I'll bring on my own baby.
Yeah, there you go. So one day I will not be on the show, and you'll know why. And I'll be off Twitter for 2 months. That's what I'm going to do.
You're going to be great.
All right. Thanks to Mosho and Weaves. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Up the Villa. Talk to y'all soon. See you.